name's Charlie Skelton. I'm here with The Guardian. I've got a piece to file today in about 3 hours. Not sure what I'm going to write about, although I say that, there's lots to write about, and fortunately this year a lot of people have been writing a lot of stuff about Bilderberg, so that's good.
And why did you feel it necessary to report on Bilderberg?
Well, I mean, because no one else was, and it was. I remember literally walking along the road thinking, one day in 2009, thinking, God, it's funny no journalist really goes along and reports on it. It seems weird. It seems quite a big thing. I wonder why no one. And I said, oh God, hang on, maybe I could just go along and do it. Whether or not I regret that thought process, I don't know, but it brings me here.
Why do you think nobody else was covering this kind of thing?
Well, that's one of the two or three big questions around Bilderberg. Why the lack of coverage? Partly, I think it's when we're talking these recent years. I think it's sort of habit. I think the mainstream media got out of the habit of talking about it to such a point where the subject itself sort of moved out of the realm of politics and current affairs and international relations where it belongs, and kind of just fell into a place all on its own. Well, not all on its own, but in a place where it's a conspiracy theory to talk about it, which I think has been properly exploded this year. I mean, really, that's the thing that seems the most. If I was to thin slice the mainstream media, it's that they've found a way of talking about it, and I think one of the reasons they've found a way is the lobbying scandal that was like last week or so in Westminster. It kind of put the whole idea of lobbying and an uncomfortable relationship between big business and politics into people's minds, into the minds of news editors and journalists, and I think the result is a much better, more balanced coverage. Financial Times, right, did a very measured and good comment piece. They sent down a journalist, great, and they wrote this piece, which is very good in terms of, it's the best you could hope for from a comment piece in the Financial Times. But one of the sentences in it was something like, I'm paraphrasing, transparency campaigners are pushing this subject because of the lobbying, and they suggest that the Bilderberg conference has a lot in common with real-world events, right? And it was like a little Freudian slip, as if the conference isn't a real-world event. It's kind of a thing that's, like a sort of something from Narnia, or we found this amulet and it's transported us here to this press zone. Anyway, it just was an odd turn of phrase, and I think that's an unconscious hangover from decades of journalists being out of the habit of talking about it. So I think as they get into the habit of it, they'll just start not using silly things. I spoke to the Irish radio, and they said, no, you're at the so-called Bilderberg conference. And I'm thinking, that's not the so-called Bilderberg conference, it's just the Bilderberg conference.
Yeah.
But they have to put that little so-called in, almost as if like, should I really be talking about this?
Yeah.
It's like a little safety net. So cool.
You've been talking about it for years, and mainstream media has been coming down here a little bit, BBC and stuff like that. But it looks like they're going straight for the kind of conspiracy theory angle.
Not all of them. Some do, and I think it bewilders me that journalists would do that.
As far as your coverage, have you come across any kind of intel about what may be some of the topics discussed this year? Do you know what they're talking about in there today?
No, I mean, obviously you look at the participant list and you can kind of guess some subjects. I mean, and also they release a kind of sketchy agenda, but that does include things like current affairs and challenges for Africa or whatever it is. So it's not exactly things like the situation in the Middle East. I can't remember what they call it this year, but but you can infer some things from the presence of there's the international business manager of BAE Systems is there, so that suggests that at least BAE thinking there's business to be done around the table.
As far as the new amount of exposure that Bilderberg is getting, do you think this is going to continue, and what might it mean for the future of Bilderberg?
Well, I think that I suspect, and this is, who knows? This is my guess. My best guess is that they released their delegate list and agenda early, quite a bit early, several days. They have hired a German communications company, CNC Communications. They put a media email address on one of their things. There's been back and forth emails between mainstream media and this corporate communications company. All of that tells me that as an organisation they are finally realising they have to address the mainstream media, because the alternative media can make a noise, but that noise is never going to be as effective in terms of the relationship between big corporations and the public as a big news organisation. So once the Times and the Telegraph and CNN and BBC start getting that bee in their bonnet, then they're simply going to have to adopt a more modern way of speaking to the mainstream media. So that was a very ill expressed thought, but what I basically mean is they're going to have to behave like what they are, which is an international policy summit with a lot of politicians and big business there.
Is it possible, or do you think that the outcomes could either be transparency, which is what we're going for, or more secrecy? Is that a possibility as well?
Well, there's a limit to how much you can ask for transparency from people like the head of KKR, or the head of Evercore, and that's not really anyone's game here. I mean, I think what we want is for our politics to be more transparent, and so insofar as politicians are there, that's what we're after, for those individuals to behave transparently, and for the organisation that is inviting in foreign ministers and finance ministers to their conference, for them to talk to the press. I'm not hoping for much from Goldman Sachs, but why would I?
Yeah. Last question for you. If you had an opportunity to maybe give the Bilderberg message a short little message, if you had a chance to talk to the guys sitting around that table right now and you could say something to them directly, what might you say?
Send down a media representative to the press zone. That.
Yeah. Awesome. Very well said. All right. Thank you very much for speaking with us, Charlie Skelton.
Thanks.